Good
Hello.
evening, Dan Leckie. Welcome to Club IDIC. Happy Remembrance / Veterans Day.
Thanks, on to you.
How are you?
Okay. How are you?
I'm all right. How you feeling?
I was starting to get tired, but I thought I'll try to stay awake for the watch party because I love watch parties so much.
Yeah,
Especially-
tonight we're going back in time and watching an episode from the original series.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was like, "What episode is it?" So I looked it up. Balance of Tatter.
Yes.
Paul Schneider's episode.
Yeah, it's a good thing to honor history is to go back in Trek's history.
And this episode certainly pays tribute to history with the Romulans basically based on Romans and stuff like that, doesn't it? I always wondered what happened to the writer of the episode, Paul Schneider. Like, I tried to read into that, but couldn't really. There's not much about him. I don't know what happened to him. It's interesting. There's so many of the other writers worked multiple times on Star Trek, or wrote for other shows and stuff like that.
Yes, it's really good to see you. It's nice to have a Trek expert.
Sorry, what did you say?
It's nice to have a Trek expert.
Oh, right. Thanks.
Hopefully we'll get lots tonight because it is Remembrance Day and it's appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Did you celebrate it or?
Yeah, there were things on the television this morning about like cenotaphs and stuff. Our city had a virtual one, but some cities had live. I've tuned in for the playing of the last post and the moments of silence.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, when I was younger, as you may have read in the Trek articles, my dad and I didn't get along, but there were things I did defer to. One of them being his demand was that we go to Cenotaph every year. He didn't personally go, but he insisted that I go, and so I did. And that's one of the things I did do as I was asked. Because my grandfather and also my second great grandfather were military veterans.
Yeah, I noticed you were posting quite a few of the images and stuff like that of your ancestors and that who have been on wars and stuff.
Yeah. I didn't know about my second great grandfather until I started doing genealogy, actually. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, yeah, and when I started really doing the genealogy, I learned that second great grandfather's eldest son was actually what is born in what is now Pakistan. So,
Ah, right.
and then 23andMe tells me, oh, you've got these cousins like that have this ethnicity. So I was like, wow, where do they come in?
I've got a bit of a question for you.
Yes.
Because, well, am I right in thinking you live in Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that. So I was wondering, how much, or if you do at all, eat maple syrup.
I do sometimes. I've never actually had the authentic maple syrup from like Quebec and stuff. I should go to Winter Carnival at some point. I would love to, maybe sometime after pandemic is over. I hear it's very nice.
I see.
Everybody asks. Yeah, it's okay. It's not a silly question. Everybody asks that.
It's so well known in Sweden, Canadian, I guess.
Yeah, maybe once pandemic eases up a little bit, because the numbers are still quite bad. I'd like to see more of Canada and more of the US as well.
I tried to run a watch party earlier tonight, but no one joined.
Oh, that's sad.
In-
You
in
should
the
have
group
invited
list.
me. Oh, somebody else is here. Yay. Please hope, I hope it's an authentic person that isn't going to crash. Hello?
Says connecting to audio.
Hi, Anthony Perez.
Yes, how have you? How
Oh
are you?
my
Haven't seen you
goodness. Welcome
since-
to your first watch party.
Yeah. Well, not my first, but yeah, with the IDIC. Oh, you know what I mean.
IDIC.
IDIC, yes. Okay, we'll go there.
Welcome to Club IDIC. We welcome you. How are you? You know, everybody else is
pretty
wearing
good, pretty
glasses, so
good.
I'm just going to join the club. I hope you don't mind a captain wearing glasses.
Good to meet you, Anthony.
Likewise.
Thanks.
How are you?
Me or Dan?
Well, you just arrived.
Well, I'm doing pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, just getting ready for upcoming convention to photograph it.
Oh, you get to be media. Oh, that's always fun.
Which convention is that?
Anime NYC.
That is
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm not photographing it for the convention. I mostly photographed the cosplayers.
Well, that's awesome. You know what? You'll be fine at it. You'll be great at it. Just go in confidence.
Yes.
It sounds
Well,
fun.
no, like I get you're nervous. It's cool. You're nervous. Before COVID, I was a freelance journalist for 15 plus years. I get you're nervous. It's nerve-wracking going
Huh.
to a situation. I get it. But just remember, you're there. You're awesome. Smile.
Yeah, Dankeschön.
What?
I said thank you.
In German.
Well, anyway, yes. I'm
Yes.
excited. I'm excited for you.
Hmm.
Anyway, tonight's topic, along with the watch episode, is remembering the sacrifices involved in battles of war. Does anybody have any thoughts on that while we wait for more to show up?
Well, having worked around veterans at one point in my life, I think it is easy for me to appreciate everything they put into what they do. And they're not looking, remember what Zephram Cochrane said? Don't try to be a great man. Just be a man, let history figure out the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of great people who didn't plan on being great, but they achieved greatness in their lifetimes for a cause outside of themselves.
Yes, Zephram Cochrane was definitely a hero in all respects. And we should totally remember him along with the other Star Trek heroes.
Well, I was thinking maybe he's not so much a wartime hero, apart from maybe in the mirror universe.
Elaborate on that. That's an interesting, you know what, let's go with that. Go ahead, run with it.
Look, you know, the Enterprise in the mirror darkly, and he shoots the first Vulcan to emerge from the Vulcan spacecraft that comes down, and then there's apparently periods where the humans like subjugate the Vulcans and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And I suppose that is seen as heroic in their twisted mind, because they're like, oh, the Vulcans are smarter than us. They're going to take over with their brains. And Yeah. In a twisted way, that is heroic, because they're trying to
I,
defend their world.
I
But the
guess there is some war stuff in First Contact, I guess, with the econ, and World War III having happened and all.
Yeah. Have you read the novel?
Ages ago, I must have.
Yeah,
I must
you,
flesh out that.
yeah, you get a little background on Lily Sloan, right? How she and her lost her siblings and then had to flee with her parents, lost her mom to cancer and her dad, I think, to suicide, and how she had to go on alone and then was planning to suicide, but then she met Zephram and then they built this thing. The Phoenix. Oh, sorry for spoilers who haven't read it.
I remember reading the novel Foundation. I thought that was some of that seemed quite extreme with that. I think it's an organization called Optimum or something like that. It's like they impose like military law on the earth and stuff. And Zephyr Cochrane's involved in all that.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, that Phoenix, how many do you think of those people living in that ramshack of a town in First Contact were veterans of some sort of war? Because, not long after Archer gave his speech was a war. I believe so, according to the Memory Alpha. There was the Earth Romulan War, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you crazy thing, I'm nerding the heck out of myself here. But if you were to get the book Starfleet, the first 100 years, and they go into detail about the Earth Romulan War.
Does it?
Yeah.
There's a particular script as well that was written but never produced, and it was a movie script that was written by Eric Jenderson, I think.
Yeah, true. It only exists in the books, which I know is not alpha canon.
Well, who cares? We're discussing wars and remembering the sacrifices. There were some definite sacrifices. We don't know who died in that war or whatever, but this is a good discussion. So let's have it.
Yeah.
I was remembering the scene. I think it's, what's the book called? The Last Good Men or something like that. It's and I'm sure there's a cenotaph or something like that, in the start of that book. It's just that. That's the one where you find out that in novels, Chip isn't dead. It was all fake.
Oh, the good that men do.
Yeah.
I did read. I read some of that. I've got a huge, inglorious. I don't know how. I ran into the thrift store one day and I found $50 worth of Star Trek novels. So I just filled the cart and shamelessly left. I was like, who would give up this treasure trove in a thrift store? Did I just hear you go, wow?
Well, from the start of that book, I was trying to remember. Well, there's in the Enterprise era, there's the Xindi Wars, as it's referred to in Star Trek Beyond. As you said, the Earth Romulan Wars. I think that includes the Tomid incident. There's
The Franklin.
I was trying to remember. Yeah, with Franklin and Beyond. I was trying to remember if the start of the book was about Jake, maybe, and to do with the Dominion Wars. The eugenics wars. There's so many wars in Trek.
Yeah. And that the eugenics wars brings up another thing. What exactly happened with Khan? Did he and his people go on that little thing, that sleeper ship, to escape them, or was he trying to escape the fact that he may have caused them?
I figure there's a bunch of prisoners on the lam myself. So it's either hop on the Botany Bay or stand trial in The Hague. if the Hague still existed after the eugenics wars. That's my take on it. He's just trying to escape because he's a wanted man on the whole planet.
Yeah, but what year was? What, this was after,
1996.
was this after World War III, or when was this? Like the eugenics wars? Does anybody know? I'm not that familiar with eugenics
The
wars.
eugenics- So I think the launch date was 1996. Yeah. It was either the start of the wars or the launch date. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the launch date at the bottom of the bay. It was in 1996, and then the Third World War was after that.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
remember researching like the writing of the Future's End, Two-Parter and Voyager, and people were like, "Well, how come there's the war stuff going on in that?" And Brandon Braga was just like, "Oh, we just decided to like ignore it." In this.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Have y'all seen the trailer for Picard 2, season 2?
I
No.
saw the trailer, but I don't have Paramount Plus, so I have to go on events such as this. And besides, they pulling all the Star Treks off Netflix.
Yeah, that's true. But the trailer shows there might have been some sort of disruption to wars, and I'm very confused as to what happened. Why would Q do that? I just find it very confusing as to why he would want to cause that confusion.
I think it's in his job description.
That's true.
Mess with the inferior creatures to see how they handle things.
Yeah. And then Kirk and Spock themselves disrupted time for a while, like, and McCoy, by saving Edith Keeler, if y'all have seen TOS, I trust that you have. McCoy saved Edith Keeler, and so for a while, the Second World War was disrupted. Hitler won, chaos reigned. So the sacrifices may have been for nothing had that timeline been allowed to continue. Can you imagine something as scary as that?
Well, it's sort of similar. Seems a little bit similar to Stormfront in Enterprise.
Really, I want to hear you run on this. Go ahead. We encourage you.
Well, where the Germans, the Nazis.
Yes, I know the basics, but I want to hear your thoughts on Stormfront.
What about my thoughts? That's a general question.
Well, I did see Stormfront and how Archer ended up in an altered timeline it was a very strange timeline, and I just can't imagine a world where Hitler won the war. It was frightening enough what he did in the war and how many people gave their lives and lost their lives. It's so painful, wretched what happened.
I think there's a few, I was thinking there's probably a few productions that are about like an alternate timeline like that. I was remembering, for example, The Man in the High Castle, which is first a book and then made it into a TV series, similar idea, where the Nazis actually won. And well, I was thinking as well, like there's so many alternate timelines. But I was thinking how it's been like heavily speculated that Picard season 2 will involve alternate timelines, and how like the actor Zefram Cochrane, James Cromwell, his interpretation of First Contact was the past events are in an alternate timeline. There's like two completely like separate interpretations of that film, depending on how you view it. But I guess that's not to do directly with war stuff.
Oh, but it is. There's always some sort of war that creates an alternate timeline. And I don't know how many of you are fans of the J.J. Abrams timeline, and we're not going to get into it because that's negative and But you know, it does start with a war, like the Kelvins just cruising around and all of a sudden, there comes Nero and his big bad Romulan ship and a war breaks out. A lightning storm in space breaks out and
But
chaos.
is that a war though, or is it? Would you maybe say it's just a battle? Because like,
Well,
where is the
a
other
war starts
Romulans at
with
that
one
time?
battle.
Yeah. But like I'm saying, like, where are like the Romulan Star Empire? Would they actually like engage in that? Because that's the initial battle in the conflict. But I don't think they do.
Well, because then the Romulans get captured by the Klingons, and then the Romulans break free of the Klingons, and then that's technically a war. Just not involving the Federation.
Mm. Yeah, there's like all that is like active war. And then I think like in the original concept, I'm sure it was, for the third Kelvin timeline movie would have featured a war between like the Klingons and Starfleet. It was written by Bob Orsi, but then the idea was scrapped.
Well, that's kind of what Into Darkness did, because didn't Admiral Marcus want to like trigger a war between the Klingons and the Federation, if I remember correctly?
So yeah, that was like the initial like spark of it, like, will they engage in war? But then yeah, it would have been like a full-fledged war, I think, in the
Yeah.
third film.
Yeah, what pisses me off is they killed I guess Admiral Pike, but life isn't fair. Sometimes people you like get killed, and that's the nature of it. And that pisses me off more than anything.
Yeah.
But you know, life is
Well,
sometimes about
city
getting
itself
killed.
comes with the territory.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what Balance of Terror is about, I guess. What are your thoughts on that, since you've both seen it before?
I'd have to see it again as a refresher.
You'd have to see it again as a refresher.
I was always like really fascinated, and took some pictures from Memory Alpha, from like the chapel on the Enterprise. I thought it was an interesting concept, and it seems a bit similar to, I can't remember the planet or the name, but in Discovery, it's season 2, like Captain Pike finds I'm sure it's like the second episode of that season. They find like a church, because that entire season is all to do with the Red Angel. And they find the church that like several icons and iconography from different religions that have been like stitched together. So the chapel in Balance of Terror, I thought, was a bit like that, because there's like several, you got like the cross and then maybe a Jewish symbol or whatever, different religions all coming together in that same area.
Yeah.
That was always interesting to me about the episode. And also when like the Romulan commander says to Kirk at the end, if this had been like a different timeline or whatever, we could have been friends, basically. I can't remember the exact words, but yeah.
Yeah. So speaking,
potential.
yeah. So speaking of remembering timelines and different timelines, do either of you have any ancestors you honored today, or you want to talk about?
Well, I know in my case, I guess generically speaking, I always talk about my grandfather, who, as you can probably figure out, was a World War II vet.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did. It was a long time ago. I don't remember what he said. But I know my mom still has the picture of him in his army uniform. And like I said, he did have a job where I was working around military veterans from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and I get to listen to little snippets of their stories from time to time. How it was in, I don't know, pick your location, Normandy, Saigon.
That's awesome. It's kudos.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dan Leckie, do you have anyone that you honored today?
Yeah.
That you want to talk about?
Mhm.
Well, I'm based in Scotland. My grandmother worked during the Second World War in England, like deciphering the Morse code stuff. What's going on in communications, and then my paternal grandfather was like a tank commander in Egypt fighting in the Second World War. And I always remember like my dad saying like it was so hot there that he could basically like boil an egg on the shell of the tank or whatever.
That's awesome. It's so awesome. It's very awesome. And since Anthony wasn't here when I told you, I'll tell mine again if that's all right.
What did I miss?
What did you miss? Not much, but I can say it again. So my paternal grandfather, he was a veteran of World War II. In 1941, he joined the armed forces and helped make the 39th Battery of the Field Artillery. He trained for overseas in 1942, and he went to France, Belgium, and Holland, and got wounded in Groesbeck, Holland. And he took time in Britain to heal. He went back to his unit in Holland after, and he went to Germany with his unit. And he volunteered for Japan in 1944, but the war ended before he was shipped out, and he got some medals. After being discharged in 1945, he earned the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal, the War Medal, the clasp to the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal, the 1939 to 45 Star, the France and Germany Star, the Defense Medal. I have a shadow box with copies of these medals in my stuff at my mom's. And I love these medals, and I have photos as well. And as I was doing genealogy, I also learned about my second great grandfather on my paternal side, and he served with with a unit called the Gordon Highlanders in India and South Africa between 1897 and 1902. And his eldest son was actually born in what is now Pakistan. And he immigrated to Canada later, not long after his son was born, from Scotland.
Are you of Pakistani descent?
I wish I knew. I have to dig through 23andMe because it says, oh, you've got these third cousins over everywhere and different ethnicities. And 23andMe has really blown my mind. Because it says I've got Arab, it says I've got Asian, it says I've got North African, blah, 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 blah. And I've got, what? And it says I'm 100% European, but that is probably a lie because the ancestry ethnicity is always wrong. And it's like, you never know. But this I do know. My dad in the 70s, he spent time as an oil worker in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, London, whatever. And I know this because I've got a little a health document, a health passport from Awaz, Iran, dated 1975.
Wow.
I can even show you if you like.
I believe you.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't show it. But yeah, isn't that cool? So our family histories and our veterans are things we should remember. And you know, something actually happened at another remembrance service today in Canada that kind of pisses me off. Would you mind if I shared about that? Like, it was a thing of disrespect, and it makes me really sad because veterans don't deserve to be disrespected. Like this happened in Kelowna, BC. And yeah, it was very sad. Like, yeah, during the Remembrance Day ceremony in Kelowna, this woman disrupted the gathering and started speaking about COVID-19 health mandates. She said she was with this group that set up their own microphone and speaker system, and the crowd freaked out. Like these veterans with medals were swearing at her and saying, hey, this is not the day, asking her to leave and calling her disgrace and saying, have you forgotten who this day is for? And telling her that she should leave the town. I shared about it on social media, and it's just like, we need to remember whose day this is. And the sacrifice is there. You know? Anyway. Thoughts.
Using the holiday of Remembrance Day just to hawk your cause. Yeah, like you say, you figure that there's a time and a place for everything, but I know you want to talk about COVID, whatever. Please take that elsewhere. So I see where you're coming from, Heather.
Yeah. I just, you know, I didn't want to bring this up, but it's like, I feel bad for all the veterans gathering because it's probably hard enough because of the disease, but you know, they gathered with their masks. They took great health risks to celebrate the day. And then this happens and they're like thinking, what the heck? I don't know. I mean, I get that they have the right to do it, but because of the soldiers dying for their freedoms and stuff, but that doesn't mean they should.
That freedom's often taken for granted.
I
It's a
agree.
troubling thing.
Yeah. Anyway.
And to me, it's no exaggeration. The phrase freedom is not free.
That's an interesting, what do you elaborate on that? I want you to run with that.
Well, when I say freedom is not free, well, literally you got freedom as in being able to do most of what you would like. It's not free that it has to be paid for, right? I mean, literally with blood, sweat, and tears, and the occasional life that was given up in the pursuit of that. Like, just to exaggerate, just to stop all the bad guys from making like our lives here a living hell. People who like fight against that sort of thing. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know, we would, who was it that told me we'd probably all be speaking German right now if it wasn't for the soldiers back in World War II.
That's true. If Hitler had won the war, we'd be living quite a bit differently than we do now. Or if World War I had turned out differently, we might not be living at all. I mean, we just have to consider how much people who served gave, how much sacrifices they made, and we have to consider our own position in the world and who we are and what we have, and we have to be grateful. Now, it's nice to have Star Trek, but you have to remember those are fictional people playing fictional roles. They don't actually exist. They're there for entertainment. The real heroes are the ones that walk the battlefield, fight the actual wars, defend our freedoms, pick up the weapons, and sometimes lose their lives or get injured, get taken prisoner. And we do need to pay them the respect they're due.
Well, but I think also Star Trek does and has paid respect to the lizard.
Oh, I'm not saying they haven't.
Yeah, I remember like reading about like the making of Chain of Command and how that was all linked in with like the Amnesty International stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like even Jimmy Doohan served in a war.
Mm-hmm. Lost a finger.
Yeah.
I
Wasn't
think he
it
was
the middle
involved
one?
in D-Day. Yeah. I think he was involved in D-Day and the storming on the beach in Normandy.
I believe he was. I believe he was, yeah. And you know what what we're gonna watch tonight.
Terror.
Yeah, it's like war usually happens that way. It usually just comes into life without much warning, and everybody's just living their lives, and then all of a sudden they hear, oh, there's a war.
And also I was thinking like there's probably sometimes like even though you're saying like they're like paid actors playing fictional characters and stuff like that, there's surely like times during that, you know, when you think like, whoa, that is really impressive what they've done there, because it occurred to me like there was some filming of The Devil in the Dark where William Shatner's dad had just passed away, but he still had to like go through the scenes and stuff like that.
And Star Trek has done an impressive job of like portraying episodes of war, and like not just in TOS and different mediums as well, but we could only show one episode tonight. But you know, it's like Balance of Terror is exactly how war is introduced into world, is introduced into life. People are going about their lives as normal, and then all of a sudden they're called to war. They're called to a disruption that leads to problems, and those problems grow over time, and then all of a sudden, boop, or they're reminded of a past war and past problems that were never resolved even with a war, and there's probably another war on the horizon because of it. Because Styles talks about that.
And listening to this conversation, I would, it would be weird if, I don't know, if Jake Sisko were to interview veterans of the Dominion War. I wonder what kind of book that would make.
Maybe you should, I mean, I wish we could get Sirakian here to talk about that. Wouldn't it be lovely if we could get Sirakian here to talk about what that would look like? Maybe if he sees this, maybe he'll want to come and visit us.
I think the absolutely, for me, you brought to mind was the Northern Battles of the Strong, where it's not the Dominion War yet, because they're still fighting against the Klingons at that point. But Jake Sisko is such a part of that episode, and is, you know, involved in the conflict.
Yeah, Jake did try to be a war reporter. That's why he stayed behind when so many of the Deep Federation. But Deep Space Nine, he wanted to report on it, and he defied his father. He defied safety. He literally said, I want to be a reporter, but then that made it hard for him. They censored a lot of his stuff. But that's how it was. Yeah, that's how it was. And with that said, Should we see how it was? And then maybe we'll have more to talk about after.
Yeah.
All right. Jake says he's got about 5 minutes. Oh, Anthony's finished, Dan's finished. Mhm.
Random thought.
Yes.
While we're waiting on everybody else to wrap up the show to talk about it, who's your stylist?
My stylist?
Yes.
Why do you ask? Why do you ask?
Because you're like,
I'm my own stylist.
Fair enough.
Hi, Leckie.
Hi, I was saying I'm away to reboot my phone, so I'll leave and then come back.
Okay.
Okay.
We're waiting on Jake anyway before we have any discussion. Because he was a little late, so we want to include him. Were you happy that you got to watch, even though we use less than legal ways to include you? Anthony,
Was that me or Jake?
I'm referring to you.
Oh. Well, I got to watch thing, I know in mirror mode.
Well,
Well, yeah. Okay, maybe I should look into Paramount Plus.
Well, now you know for next time. Next week is Minefield. Next Tuesday is Minefield.
So which series is that from? Remind me.
Enterprise.
Oh.
And the next Tuesday, we're going to have a DS9 Fest. Because that will be my birthday, the 23rd.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. We're going to be watching some Julian episodes because Julian Bashir is my favorite character.
Ooh.
Yes.
Did you meet him in person at all?
I haven't. Never got the opportunity.
Same here.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I know I did get to meet Renee before he passed.
Lucky. I volunteered at some cons, but you know, I was so busy. I didn't, oh my goodness, there he is. I didn't really get a chance to really say more than a couple words to Renee. I was so busy volunteering at the cons.
Oh, there he goes.
Jake. Hello?
Hey.
Well, what did everybody think of the episode? Since we're all here and watched it.
Well, I'll go first. I guess kind of like looking at how what thing with Mr. Styles, you know, like thing with like letting your personal biases get in the way of you doing your duty.
Yes.
And man, because it wasn't like, oh my God, all the pointy-eared people are evil. Then I said, oh wow, I can't believe you saved me from in the phaser room. But I guess it's kind of like that. Cause I'm thinking back when I was at the Intrepid Museum. If you're ever in New York City, feel free to check it out. Kind of like how they had to deal with the damage happened with the kamikaze hits. Yeah, it's not easy.
It's strange, that's one of the things I was thinking about before this episode, how war and battles has an effect on people where they turn into not so very nice people who say not so very nice things. They act in ways that they wouldn't normally act towards each other, like how during like Pearl Harbor and those conflicts, perfectly good Americans and Canadians suddenly turned against Japanese Americans and Canadians, and they treated them like they were animals and creatures that needed to be locked away, and it was absolutely terrible. Just because things happen beyond these ordinary citizens' control.
Yeah, I think George Takei was in one of the internment camps, or
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
he grew up there.
and then he did a play or something.
Allegiance, the play
Yeah.
Allegiance, and the graphic novel, They Call Us Enemy.
Yes, I've read it.
How is it?
It's very deep. It's very deep. It talks about how his family was forced to leave their home and move to two different camps. They were first in a camp because of who they were, and then his parents and his family were moved to another camp because they wouldn't suddenly drop who they were. They wouldn't drop their citizenship, if I understand the graphic novel correctly. They wouldn't just abandon who they were simply because of the war. They wouldn't drop their loyalty to their heritage, so they were moved to a tougher camp. But they made the best of it. They made a home out of it, and eventually the camps closed. His mother was actually, I believe, scheduled to be deported, but through a lot of government work later, that hearing was stayed, if I remember the graphic novel and what I've read in his biography correctly. You should read it.
Yeah, I've never seen the play. I think there was like a recording done of it, or that's available. And then also, I need to read that graphic novel too. So.
Yeah. And I mean, this is what war and battles do to people. They destroy common sense, they destroy lives, they injure people, they turn them in perfectly decent people into people that are unrecognizable. They haunt. I mean, Jake, you mentioned that you had served. Does it change you?
So I never actually served in like war or anything, because I just served stateside. I was never overseas.
Yeah.
So I can't. I don't have the background to be able to say. So.
Sorry, I had forgotten. But Anthony, you mentioned you had worked with veterans.
When I was at the Intrepid Museum, yes.
And did they ever mention how serving had changed them at all?
Well, it wasn't something they would bring up in casual conversation. Like mostly with the I don't want to call it a holiday, but basically when we did something like with Memorial Day, you got some of the vets. I don't know, I'm thinking right now we only got Vietnam people now. I guess most of the W2 guys are gone. Yeah, but they never really talked about it out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you're asking.
So, I know my, oh, sorry. So I know my grandpa was in World War II. And from what my grandma says, he would never talk about it. So,
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I mean, and
I
that
don't,
was his wife. So.
I don't know if you're familiar with a painting called 200. I think it's called something like 200,000 yard stare or something like that.
I
Um,
I wish I was. Why don't you tell us about it?
it's quite a haunting painting. I think from World War II, from one of the wars anyway. And it's, I know, I found out recently it's like repeatedly referred to in the latest novel. It's been published, the Star Trek novel, which is Coda Book 2, The Ashes of Tomorrow. So yeah, it's referred to in that book. I started watching this episode. I came up with a question for like the rest of the group, basically, which was, like the conflicts with like involving the Federation, the Starfleet, where they're battling the Borg, basically. Like, would you consider that a war or not?
Well, I would, because how many people died battling the Borg in the best of both worlds? How many ships were destroyed? How many lives were lost?
Oh, yes. And talk about people turning into things. You do remember some of the premise from the pilot episode, Deep Space Nine? How basically Cisco wanted to strangle Picard for killing his wife.
Mhm.
Because I thought like that's sort of the idea of not being so emotional, like the not viewing the conflict so emotionally, but just like as a thing to get on with. Basically, it was, I thought, was maybe analogous to like the Borg, like they're so like just drone like in a way. And I thought it's notable at the end of this episode where it says like Kirk says it never makes sense. And also reading the description of what this discussion would be about, and I noticed like one of the things like what was listed was how can we, or how should we remember those that have been in war. So like I remembered in the Voyager episode Death Wish, where Q brings Riker onto Voyager, Starship Voyager, and you see like his ancestor from like the American, I think it's an American Civil War.
Yeah.
I thought like you could like have images to remember people. I thought that's a good example of that.
Yeah. But I mean, Stiles spoke about the Earth Romulan War, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Mm.
And how many lives are altered there? I wish that somebody would do a series on that and maybe end it with Jonathan Archer giving a speech and saying, oh, all the turmoil that the Federation faced after, and how the Federation struggled to really get its feet between that time and TOS.
Well, behind the scenes, there was consideration of like doing in the third season, making the villain the Romulans rather than the Xindi, basically.
Well, really?
The only good thing that came out of the whole Xindi arc were the insect people.
Like the
What do you
Xindi
mean?
were nice, but it was just, it kind of didn't.
One, the fact that they ripped off George Lucas for season 3.
Let's not include that.
I mean, why not have the Romulans attack the Earth? That would have made much more sense. And then the fourth
That's
season.
what I thought the script. That's what I thought they did well in the script that was written for a movie idea by Eric Jenderson that was called Star Trek: The Beginning, I think. And in Enterprise we've got like the Romulan drone ships in that three-parter, Babel 1, United, and the Enar. And it's got holographic projectors on the hull of the ship. In the script of like the Romulan Wars, they had like multiple drone ships all attacking Earth and stuff like that all at the same time. Well, I thought it was quite cool
That
script.
would have made an interesting movie.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the Star Trek lore that's been untouched, why not go to the past instead of constantly just jump into the future and filling in that canon? I mean, come on.
Well, like Star Trek Discovery did, how they should have just done that in the first place instead of trying to shoehorn the thing into the original series. No, that's just my
Yeah.
opinion on that. So,
And
What's
yeah,
your
I also
thought?
remembered the first season, of course, the Discovery features the Klingon War.
no, the Klingon, those not the Klingons, Dan. That was the California Raisins.
What?
That was supposed to be a joke, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
You look like you have something to
yeah.
say, Jake.
No, I'm good. I can tolerate Discovery haters. It's okay.
Yes.
I thought the Klingons in the first season were brilliant, because what you've got immediately prior to that, like, really like leads up to it, because you've got like the discussion with I can't remember his name, but in Divergence, the episode of Enterprise called Divergence, and he mentions that he thinks like cranial reconstruction will become like a fad for the Klingon Empire and stuff like that. So no wonder they look different by the time of Discovery.
You realize you just made me do you realize that it was Spock's sister that started the war with the Klingons, and Spock worked to unify the Federation and the Klingon Empire later? Do you realize that? So the House of Sarek caused all sorts of grief and trouble within the Federation. Talk about stirring the pot. I mean, come on. Talk about creating chaos in IDIC. And they wear that little symbol around their necks all the time. I mean, come on. Talk about like starting the battles. So, how did everybody enjoy?
Well, it's nice to again look back at the original shows that got me into Star Trek in the first place.
Cool.
You're not that old. You can't be. Come on.
I didn't say I saw when it first came out.
Doesn't mean to.
Well, at least you see where I got this thing from.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
It's amazing. It's a Romulan ship.
Yeah.
Where'd you get it?
I've had this thing for so long I've forgotten.
That's cool. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I found it.
That's amazing. But you know, it's interesting how it started, isn't it? It started with a wedding. It started with everyone being happy, going on with their lives, and then all of a sudden they get news that this terrible thing has happened and they have to rush to prepare for battle. What were your feelings when there's this wedding, this happy event was suddenly disrupted?
Someone besides me, please.
Well, I can pretend to be profound and say that something along the lines of how war interrupts like happiness or good times or hopes for the future, etc.
Yeah. It doesn't. It's not even fair, is it? It's not fair that it just happens whenever it happens. There's not a timeline, there's not a prediction, there's not a way to predict it. It happens because good people make bad decisions. That's why things like that happen. They get full of hate and anger and all sorts of emotions, and some don't get help for it, or some don't, get counseling or whatever, and bad people or good people make bad decisions and get lost in those decisions and do things they can't take back. And that's what it is, and it snowballs. And that's what it is. That's what I think anyway. What are your thoughts?
I was thinking that surely like some wars have more sort of lead up to them than others, because some like start as cold wars and then escalate, but obviously not all of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's really sad about all the wars we've had. How many wars have we had in this world?
Just the major ones. Let me see.
Any war, any conflict,
four,
anything
five,
that
six,
could be
seven.
prevented by a good person not making a bad decision and it's snowballing.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how to count the number of wars that the world has had. I'm not even sure how to begin to count them.
And the battles and the conflicts, like a lot of wars stem from battles, and battles stem from conflicts, and conflicts stem from good people making bad decisions and good people failing to get along with one another, and indifference and hate and misunderstandings and all sorts of bigotry and other things that people could learn to. It's like, it's simple hate just blown out of control. It's awful.
Sometimes.
Well, more often than not.
So
I didn't realize. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to say something controversial, and
You can, it's fine. I don't care.
so just from like a nation's perspective, we try to avoid war and conflict as much as we can, but I don't disagree with I mean, okay, I'll just say it this way. War is a bad thing, but sometimes I don't think it's really avoidable. I mean, both sides were at the table, then yeah, sure, we could avoid it, but that's not always the case. So
that's very true.
So, I mean, because I know one of the things that I found interesting during the episode was when they were at the table and they're trying to decide whether or not to fight. And actually, Spock the pacifist was the one that was arguing most ardently that they should. So that was one of the things that I found interesting. So, and it's debatable whether or not they actually should have attacked, but Spock was possibly right, and if the Romulan vessel had returned, there might be even a bigger war as a result.
That's right. I mean, the Romulans definitely come out in numbers, and they are a very driving force, as we see in TNG, I believe it is, how powerful they are and how many resources they have. And you can imagine that the Starfleet of old wouldn't do very well against them. But so when the Starfleet of old has an opportunity to decimate them, they need to take it no matter the risk involved. And I can imagine that Earth didn't do very well in the Earth-Romulan conflict, because I'm pretty sure that it took some time after that Earth-Romulan conflict for Starfleet to rebuild its numbers, because you can imagine. Because, I mean, even in Discovery, you can kind of see that it's probably still recovering a little bit from war, and they don't want to get into more war, which is probably why Giorgio is so reluctant to fire on the Klingons. Hey, we're probably still recovering. We don't want to just jump into a conflict and Burnham's, hey, let's blow these Klingons out of the sky. Right?
Right. Yeah, I just find it interesting how quick the Vulcans are to leap into conflict for being pacifists. Because I mean, you saw it in the episode, and then we saw it in Discovery too. So.
Well,
Yeah.
the Vulcans that was like a Vulcan civil war, wasn't it? Like originally, before the Romulans left Vulcan to become Romulans, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, didn't they eventually unify and become Nibar?
Yeah, well, but like prior to that, I was thinking like you've got like the Federation and Romulan Star Empire basically like making peace or leading up to that with like the end of Nemesis, and yet like by the time of Picard, they're like at each other's throats again, and then yeah, by the time Discovery season 4, they're like all peaceful again.
Yeah.
Is there any canon literature about the Vulcan and Romulan split, or do they just not really cover it? I know there's probably like books or comics or something, but
I think there's like a discussion about, isn't T'Pau and Enterprise, and they talk about the Vulcan split? If I remember the episode, I haven't seen all the Enterprise episodes, bad me, but
It's a 3-episode arc called The Sidonites, The Awakening, and The Cure Shadow.
yeah, we'll eventually get to those. I mean, we're still a young club and there is a new year, so we'll get to them.
Researching wars in Star Trek, I didn't realize basically like there's so many that don't involve Starfleet or the Federation, like alien species fighting each other, like the Borg in Species 8472, or Ecos and Xeon in Patterns of Force in the original series. There were quite a few like that. I was like, wow, took me by surprise.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much we don't know, and they just give us these things, these episodes, and they expect us to fill in the blanks. Like, we can't fill in the blanks.
The Ennis and Noel Ennis, but Kaiopaka's appearance, it's just passed away.
Yeah, I think there's a memorial for her tomorrow. Is it tomorrow night? No, it's Saturday night, offered through Gate in Space, I believe. Yeah.
For the actress.
I think it's open to everyone. So if you're looking for something to do, go to their page. Yeah, so
oh yeah, there were also the temporal Cold Wars, basically that then is referred to in Discovery. It's just like the temporal wars, implying that it then escalated. into a full-blown war from having been a temporal Cold War. And
Yeah.
that's referred to in Enterprise.
And the temporal wars, I believe, caused another consequence, because I don't know how many of you have seen Discovery. But that's why the Guardian of Forever went into hiding, if you remember that, because the dude that played Jim Brass in CSI, I cannot pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try. He basically appeared to mirror Giorgio and Burnham and said, "This is why I've been hiding. People wanted to abuse the Guardian of Forever, so I went into hiding." And yeah, so
It was like late season 3, if I'm not mistaken.
yes.
Yeah.
And that is the consequence. That's another consequence of battles and war. People suddenly want to abuse what resources are available, and people have to really struggle and fight to hold on to what is theirs and what is available, and fight to assert their rights. You know,
But
and
also
yes.
In that Klingon War, that's like in the first season Discovery, it's established in the second season, like the Enterprise under Pike, like deliberately stayed out of it, and similarly with the Enterprise E, like deliberately stayed out of the Dominion War, like as it said in Interaction. It seems similar to me as to how like the Guardian of Forever like deliberately avoided the temporal wars.
The Enterprise E avoided the Dominion War. I don't understand why that did that. That was a bit, I don't know. That
I was
feels a bit-
weird, the flagship of the Federation, they weren't even on the front line.
that feels a bit of a cowardice to me. They could have saved so many lives if they were involved.
Well, I know, granted, they want to focus on Cisco because
I
it
know.
was Deep Space Nine, but
I know, but to say they sat out of the war, that feels like a bit of a cowardice. They could have been fighting somewhere else, because the Dominion War was everywhere.
So I don't remember that part.
I
Where was
think
it?
somebody wrote a book about it. It might be like in one of the books. Somebody wrote about what the Enterprise E might have been doing during the Dominion War.
Well, I was remembering there's definitely a novel about why Pike's Enterprise was out of the Klingon War.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, and that was actually a pretty central piece to Pike's arc in Discovery season 2 was about Starfleet keeping him out. They didn't. He wanted to take part in it, but Starfleet told him no. So that was.
Which I don't understand, because eventually Pike takes on a training crew and ends up getting very injured. Was that some sort of a Q manipulation, perhaps, so that he could fulfill his original destiny, perhaps?
What?
Well, did Q or somebody have a manipulation? Because we all know what happened to Pike. Was that just manipulating it?
No, it was time
Sorry.
crystals on Borath. Borath.
I mean, because basically putting in the story that Pike was told to sit out of a war when he was a decorated Starfleet captain, it made him look like a coward. It really did, because it lists, I believe, on a ship that he was a decorated Starfleet captain, and then they say, oh, Pike was told to sit out of the Starfleet Klingon War. That makes him look like a coward.
I don't agree.
Why
I
don't
think
you
it makes.
agree?
I think it establishes like that he still has to follow orders. Basically, he's not doing it necessarily specifically out of will. His own will, anyway.
That's
So-
true.
So that's part of being part of like any military-ish organization. So it just is
That's true.
you have your superiors and you follow their orders.
That's true, but how many died because Pike wasn't there? It makes me wonder. I don't know. I just wish Pike could have fought a little more. I wish we would have seen him more.
Well, I guess you're gonna get your wish with Strange New World.
He's what?
You're gonna get your wish with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true. But you know, to be fair, Jake, you've seen Enterprise, right? Not everybody always followed the captain's orders. Malcolm Reed didn't, and he got into a crap load of trouble.
No, they don't, especially in Starfleet. That's why I was like military-ish. There, I mean, because there's always some debate about whether or not Starfleet is a military organization or not. Even
Mhm.
I think Picard, Kirk, Pike, at some point or another, have all said that the Starfleet isn't a military organization. So
I mean, maybe paramilitary.
Yeah,
I don't know. Am I off base? It's not really military. It's kind of more humanitarian military in its organization, but more humanitarian in that context with people and maybe diplomatic
yeah,
as well.
I think you'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think they use those terms in like the Kelvin timeline films as well, saying it's like a peacekeeping organization or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was the Pike of that universe.
Yeah. Wow, we have gone deep.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Does anybody have any more insight?
my wood, there's already 22:30 here. I'm starting to feel tired.
Mm.
Covered a lot of ground.
Jake, do you have anything to add?
Just I don't know, because I was just thinking about the comment on how to remember veterans and things like veterans of wars.
Yeah.
I don't know. This might seem kind of weird, but I would say live your lives the best you can. They sacrificed so that you could. So don't leave. So don't let that sacrifice be in vain. So that is
Yeah.
my contribution to the answer to that question. So
Oh,
That's
okay.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Don't disrespect the freedoms that they gave you by wasting them in terms of breaking the law or doing illegal things. Like, do honorable things with your life.
mhm.
Yeah. And, you know, everybody's getting tired. So,
I
Honestly-
guess
yes.
like one thought just occurred to me was about the Voyage episode Memorial, where there's a war memorial on a planet that the Voyager crew eventually like turns off. It's like they're like I think they do anyway. It's like too much. It's like don't get obsessed maybe about it. So that was one thought that I had.
Yeah. I mean, don't get
Other aspects
obsessed.
of it.
Right. Obsessed. Like, obsessed as in don't live in the past, but don't forget the past.
Because that was all what was happening to them, all, reliving the war in their minds.
Yeah. Some can't escape that though. Like, you know, a lot of people have PTSD and they can't escape the pain because it was so very real for them. And
Mhm.
that's why a lot of people can't talk about it. They don't know how. Right. And, you know, the counseling resources and the mental health resources really should be better for veterans, but they don't get the help and the respect they deserve. And I blame the government on that. And I will say that the government and the healthcare system for veterans should be a lot better than it is. And I will say that loud and proud. It should be better, but it's not. There's the money's there, but the bureaucracy is just not as it should be for veterans. And it's disrespectful and it's cruel. Thoughts? Any thoughts? No? Okay, yeah, I'll stand by it. I'll stand by my position on that. Because my relatives, I've got relatives on my maternal side as well. My grandfather served in World War II, and my aunts and uncles served. And some of them even, work with the VA. They go to the VA hospital, the Vets Hospital in Washington. They go to VA hospitals all over, and the VA hospital is great for veterans. They get to use it a lot because they're vets. They served a lot of places, and they're awesome. The VA hospitals are nice. But the government could definitely afford to put more funding into those places.
Mhm.
But they just don't do it.
Yeah, I think I've always thought like they could have dealt with PTSD and stuff like that a little bit more in Star Trek. I think that they've done it a bit more recently with Detmer. I think that's her name. Like sort of dealing with that in the third season of Discovery.
Mhm.
So, and then there was a entire episode in Deep Space Nine with Nog. So,
Mhm.
and what I've heard,
Only a Paper Moon, that one.
Mhm,
Yeah, where he lost his leg.
mhm, yeah. So from my understanding, there were a lot of veterans that have come forward and thanked them for that episode. So because
Mhm.
Yeah.
from what I heard, it really helped a lot of people.
I think
Yeah.
there's some of Seventh Nine's sort of character arc that sort of deals with like PTSD sort of stuff as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. We'll get to those episodes. I promise you. They're on a schedule. Senior staff sits and plans episodes because nobody suggests them. So we sit and plan. We'll get to them. I promise. Because we know how much everybody loves these, and we plan because nobody suggests. So we plan things. But if you want to suggest them, we have suggestion threads in the club. So yeah, suggest them when you'd like to see them, and we'll totally do it.
Someone was saying today, like, do you not think it's like a bit strange that Picard, after being Locutus, was allowed command back at the Enterprise so soon? I was thinking just now, even though, like, I was talking about the Borg earlier, like, and I was thinking, like, off the top of my head, like, they are so, clear cut. They just think of like action, not like the emotionality sort of repercussions of those actions. They just want to like assimilate. But of course, those are like often at least Booleans or humans or whatever it is that have been assimilated themselves, and they'll have family and stuff like that, and they'll be killed in those wars, and that all has repercussions.
Do you not remember how First Contact originally started, where Starfleet told him not to join the fleet because of that?
Mm-hmm.
And Picard decided to defy his orders, or the orders he was given. And I'm sure maybe that's why they were told to sit out of the Dominion War, because, oh, maybe this war will be too triggering.
But also, like, the orders they were given seemed like so boring. It's like watching the Romulan neutral zone for comets or whatever.
Starfleet has every confidence in her flagship, but not every confidence in her captain. I believe it was along those lines of what he told Riker.
Yeah, that was pretty close. I think that's almost that might be exact actually.
Yeah. I mean, good thing they defied orders, or else First Contact might have been screwed.
Yes.
And then also like the wars where there had been like puppet masters or whatever behind the scenes. Like I was thinking about Undiscovered Country, where there's obviously conspiracy, the Kittimer conspiracy, as it's called on Mammy Alpha, and the one that's just been basically in season 2 of Lower Decks, where the villains you think are the Pakleds, but they're really the Klingons are sort of operating things behind the scenes.
Well, at least that one Klingon ship, not necessarily the whole Klingon Empire. But
I wonder what villain conspired to get that captain arrested anyway. And it's been long enough that I don't care if that was spoiled for some, because the people should watch it.
I don't know. After about a week, I usually say talk about whatever you want. if you weren't, or that might sound a little rude, but if you weren't interested enough to watch it after it's been out for probably a month now, then
yeah, like maybe Starfleet was mad at Captain Freeman for sending that little disruptive Doppler into the little high-end party and said, oh, let's figure out a way to get her arrested or something, because she wrecked the fancy party by sending that pissy little Doppler and he wrecked the party by having a temper tantrum and duplicating and wrecking all the fancy parties. Maybe, I don't know.
well, that seems like a Lower Decks plot to me. So
Well, did you see the Doppler episode? That's exactly what they did when they couldn't get in the party, and whatever, Captain Freeman had the little Doppler beamed into the party, and then they started duplicating and broke all the fancy things in the party.
Alrighty.
Oh, are you getting tired? All right. Should we wrap?
Yeah. I'm feeling a little weary right now.
Okay.
So I respectfully about. Thanks for having over, Heather.
You're welcome. I hope to see you at our next party.
All right.
So nice meeting you.
Yes, it was lovely.
Bye.
Live long and prosper, everyone.
Peace and long life.
Peace and long life. Get some rest.
All right, bye.
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 How are you two doing? Do you guys need to go as well?
I'm
24 here.
Oh my.
Whoa. Yeah, I need to go. Good night. It was good discussion. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
You
Yep,
too.
nice seeing
Both
you.
of you.
Nice
Yeah,
seeing
good to see
you.
you. Take care.
Is there anything more you wanted to discuss?
No, not really.
Okay, so shall I let you go as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you so much for coming.
So thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us. So,
You're welcome. Thank you for being a good guest, and hope to see you next Tuesday.
okay. Have a good weekend.
Yes, you
care.
too. Good night.
Night.
Good night. Thank you so much for attending this evening. Hopefully you learned a lot about the sacrifices involved in battles and wars. Live long and prosper.